News conference that followed the announcement of Max Verstappen extending his contract at Red Bull until the end of 2030 was approaching its final moments when a light-hearted remark got the crux of his decision. "I was closer to retiring than changing teams," Verstappen said. The four-time champion facing existential questions about this year about his future in F1. The first was triggered by the new engine regulations introduced this year. Did he even want to continue racing in his former motorsport? The second followed on. If so, did he want to do it at Red Bull or did he want to change teams? The announcement of Verstappen added 2 further years to a contract that already lasted to the end of 28 has put both questions to bed to a degree, but the first more than the second. 3 races into the season after the Japanese Grand Prix, the frustration over driving the new hybrid engines this year boiled over Verstappen, and need to constantly recover energies, power the batteries, the impossibility of doing so to the extent they are fully charged at all times, and the artificiality that had been introduced into the racing as a consequence were too much for Verstappen after the race. Arguably the greatest circuit on calendar, said, "Is it worth it?" Verstappen pondering, "Or do I enjoy being at home or with my family, seeing my friends, or when you're not enjoying the sport?" By 2028, the split between the internal combustion engine and electrical power will be 60-40 in favour of the internal combustion, where it's more like 53-47 now. This will reduce, not eliminate, the energy starvation suffered by the engines, and as a consequence making driving more enjoyable. Verstappen's the purist. He wants to drive on them at all times, so the way he was having to drive these current cars before the end of the straights, lifting off, etc., has not been a fan. It may have an experience that underlined what F1 had lost to him in his mind. He raced a Red Bull branded Mercedes-AMG GT at the Nürburgring 24 hours, and he was nothing less than sensational, particularly on the first stint that took the car he shared with 2 other drivers from 10th to 1st. Only a late draft shaft failure robbed him of victory. That to him was what racing was about. Since Japan, the complaints of the drivers, Verstappen was far from the only driver to express his discontent, have been hurt by the sport pauses. Tweaks to the rules are being introduced over the 2 years to increase the proportion of total power output of the engine coming from the internal combustion side. The last couple of races for the summer break, which is brought to an end by the weekends of Dutch Grand Prix, a softening of Verstappen's tone in F1 was clear, and on Thursday he confirmed it. After the 5 races, I said to Laurent, "Don't come to me with any kind of question about the future, because I don't even know if I wanted to stay. I love racing. I had a lot of discussions with F1, but also with the FIA, and I think we're slowly walking towards something that's better. Also from my side, of course, I adapted. I accept the situation we're all in and just trying to make the best of that. Also the year that I signed to, again, opens the door maybe, when potentially the V8s come in as well, so we can look at that." There's a reference to the ongoing discussion about new rules. It's scheduled to come in at 2031 at the latest. It says something that the mess of the sport's got in with its engine rules, that drivers are looking ahead that long. The FIA are primarily responsible for the issues. They were warned by teams and drivers that it could lead to the starvation, but they did not listen and instead tried to get manufacturers in. Now though, FIA President Ben Salem is pushing new rules that effectively turn back the clock in F1 by a decade and a half. Naturally aspirated V8, no hybrid at all, with just some electrical window dressing. The approach misses the point, as it's not a hybrid is the issue, but the relationship between recovery, battery capacity and deployment. It also introduces other problems, such as what would be a significant increase in the amount of fuels needed to race. On top of that, far from the engine manufacturers are happy. The V8 side of it has no problem with, but Audi and Mercedes would prefer engines to be turbocharged, and there's some desire for that, but none of that should be a key concern for Verstappen. The key part is that his main concern, being able to use all the power the engine has, will come true, and that is for Verstappen how he made peace with it all. Personally, I'm not happy with it. He said it's still not fantastic, but I love racing and it's still an F1 car. They decided it brought him a secondary part. Shea at Red Bull moved. Mercedes were long-term suitors, but they've indicated they would like to stay with their current driver lineup despite the temptation. Verstappen also held talks with McLaren, where his friend and engineer Gianpiero Lambiase is moving in the next few years. Red Bull had a difficult 2026 so far. Verstappen's yet to win, repeatedly voiced concerns about the future. Mekies would not elaborate on what he called strategic strategies he shared with Verstappen, but clearly they were enough. The fact that Red Bull allowed him to pursue other activities like Nürburgring were also a factor. First of all, you need to feel good where you're at, he said. Red Bull allows me to do things a little bit outside of F1, so it's like a big plus. The whole package, which I'm very grateful for. He talked about his love for Red Bull, what he called a really good open relationship with Mekies, and they would not elaborate on public on the details and the deal they've agreed, but rumours suggest it's a small pay bump to what was already one of the biggest salaries in F1 history. Verstappen's still in control of his own future with options to leave, but also Mecky's pointed out a demonstration of the trust he puts in the team, talking about what he talked about with Dietrich Mateschitz before he passed, and that there's still the targets for the team going forward, but a huge coup for Red Bull.
Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share and subscribe. Follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily F1 news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.